Welcome to another Coding Like Mad Matlab video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I think might be Matlab's worst feature. If you haven't heard of function shadowing before, now's your chance. It gets a little bit weird. So what exactly is function shadowing? Well, full disclosure, I don't know that everyone calls it this, but I personally do, and so that's what you're getting taught. So maybe the best way to see it is just to look at an example. Let's take a built-in function like norm. This calculates the norm of a vector. If I put -2 in, that's a vector of length 2. If I put a 2 in, still a vector of length 2. What I mean by shadowing this function is I'm going to set norm equal to some other variable. Matlab will still happily run this, and this is because of a coincidence that Matlab uses the same parentheses for accessing a vector as it does for accessing a function. You'll notice there are some red squiggles on the screen right now, but actually if we mouse over them, all they're saying is that we might want to add a semicolon to our definitions. There's no warning whatsoever that we have overridden a built-in function. Now, if you're the only person working with your code, that's not that big a deal because you know what you've shadowed. On the other hand, if somebody else is working with your code, they might not know every variable that you've created inside of your code. And keep in mind, in Matlab, you can reassign things anywhere. So in thousands of lines of code, what are the odds that somebody has overwritten something somewhere? Let's give a second example of how this can be problematic. For my second example, I'm going to use the min function. So I'm going to set min equals to an array, and then I'm going to pretend that I forgot that I have done the shadowing, and I calculate the min of the vector 1, 2. Now I should be getting a 1 out, but you can see I actually get the values 2 and 3. Unlike in the norm case, the dimension changed, but a lot of MATLAB code is written so that it doesn't matter what the input dimension of a variable is. This gives you a lot of speed benefits, a lot of versatility benefits, but in this case means your code didn't crash. And again, there's no indication whatsoever that anything untoward has happened. I think that this is a little bit to do with the way people name their functions. I like to name my variables after nouns. So for example, I'd like to have a variable named min. I actually have done the shadowing several times by accident. On the other hand, MATLAB names its functions after the nouns. I really wish they would name them after verbs, but anyway, getMin I guess just doesn't have the same ring to it. So how does this turn into an actual bug? Well, maybe an easy way for it to happen is something like this. I have two different functions here, one which correctly passes the min variable in, and the other which doesn't. Now, this might seem contrived, but before you comment below that it is contrived, think to yourself, have you ever accidentally written a function where you forgot to include a variable in the definition and got told this by the compiler? I don't think there's a programmer on the planet that hasn't made this mistake at least once. The difference is, when I have a shadowed function there, I can end up getting a result out of both versions of the function. So, in a sense, function shadowing makes it more likely that you're going to make a mistake, and it makes bugs more likely because it removes some of the intrinsic protections that having an interpreted language gives you. Normally, MATLAB would tell you there's a problem that you forgot to include here, but because you're using a shadowed function, no such problem occurs. You just get the wrong answer. A third example of how this can happen and be problematic is when you're using Greek letters. Put another way, most people perhaps know that a gamma function exists in MATLAB. But what you might not know is there's also a beta function. Of course, I didn't give it enough variables, but you get the point. A lot of variables which you're going to want to use if you're, for example, copying the notation of an algorithm out of a textbook or out of a paper are already taken by MATLAB. So what are the chances that you're going to accidentally use a variable that MATLAB has already claimed? I mean, think back through all of the papers you've read. Have you seen a gamma, a beta, or an epsilon ever used? Because those three, at least, are all built-in MATLAB functions. It's incredibly easy to do this by accident. So I think that when you come down to it, there's different philosophies for how you should be writing your code. Some people like languages which don't try and protect you from your own mistakes. Those people might find C, for example, to be a very appealing language because, really, if you mess up there, things just kind of explode. On the other hand, some people like to have, shall we say, more handlebars in their life, more guardrails. I don't know that there necessarily is a right or a wrong answer to this, but my personal view is that any feature which makes it more likely that you will have bugs should come with it a commensurate amount of benefit. And in this case, I don't see that benefit. Perhaps if it was only limited to overriding one function with another function, I would feel differently. But it lets me overwrite a function with a variable, and I cannot understand why that's beneficial. If you think you know a good reason for that to occur, let me know in the comments below. I'm willing to entertain the possibility that I'm wrong about this. Maybe there's a great reason for this, but at the moment, I just don't see it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, think about giving a like, maybe a subscribe, who knows? We have a lot of cool stuff coming out over the next couple of weeks. We have at least one AI video in Matlab coming out, as well as 2 videos which are about video game AI, and I am particularly proud of. There's some cool stuff coming up. You don't want to miss it. So hopefully see you next time.